Audiobooks, presents. Meeting on the Train. Author, Hildebrando Martins de Almeida. About the author. Hildebrando was born in 1961, in Piracicaba, state of São Paulo, Brazil. Not a professional writer. Make art drawings. Passionate about art, spirituality, cinema, chess, literature, classical music, nature, peace, and silence. He was never a dedicated student. After having abandoned his studies, it took him 25 years to go back to school. Concluded the second degree through supevo. Started journalism school, but due to lack of money, he abandoned the course after a month. Never married and has no children. The story in this audiobook was written around 1995 to participate in a literary contest. The text of this short story was translated from Portuguese into English by Google Translate. This audiobook was narrated by an artificial voice. Beginning of the audiobook. Meeting on the train. The train had arrived late. No one got off at the cramped station, but me, my son and 6 other people boarded it, with São Paulo as our destination. With how hot it was the height of summer, I had to do my best to get on the crowded train. Before he arrived, I was tempted several times to postpone the trip until the next morning, when it would be a little cooler and with fewer passengers. We could spend the night at my parents' house, with whom we had spent the holiday and the weekend, but I resigned myself, aware that I had an appointment scheduled for 9 o'clock on Monday. As much as Mama tried to hide it, I realized that she only found the courage to ask about my husband Rodrigo, shortly before we went to the train station. The mother of 2 girls, the motherly love she had for him was understandable, and which he reciprocated. "Why didn't Rodrigo come with you?" he asked me in a low voice, as if he didn't want my father to hear, although he didn't have to. That sweet memory brought an imperceptible smile to my lips, but it was enough to ease the bad mood I felt. Despite being separated from Rodrigo, we maintained a good friendship, so he liked to accompany me on these visits to my parents. However, this time he claimed to be busy with a new advertising project. "I have no reason to doubt your word. I don't know exactly when our marriage ended. My husband couldn't say when he stopped loving me either. Maybe it wasn't a single reason that caused the breakup, but a series of them, or our marriage was a mistake from the beginning. Anyway, one day we decided it was time for him to look for an apartment for himself. Distracted by a beam of sunlight, I turned my eyes away from the book I was reading and started looking at my son Ronaldo, with his glasses hanging down on the tip of his nose. His face had remained grim ever since we left the station. He was concentrating on a game of chess that he liked to carry in his pants pocket. Ronaldo is a 16-year-old teenager, extroverted, intelligent, capable of making friends with anyone in 5 minutes. His black hair falls over his forehead as if drawn by his bushy right eyebrow. The hooked nose gave him a more virile look, contrasting with the thin, almost feminine lips. On the tip of his thin chin I can see the remnants of a beard. In those first 45 minutes of the journey, the seat in front of us was one of only 2 that was unoccupied. However, when the train stopped at a station, I went to the bathroom and, when I returned 4 minutes later, I found Ronaldo talking to an unknown boy. I stopped my steps immediately, not because I was scared or surprised, I just wanted to observe the stranger better. He was wearing a light blue shirt, in the pocket of which there was a pen. Leaning against his jeans he held a hardcover book. Her shoes looked soft and well made. Thick, bushy brows shadowed black eyes, which barely blinked as they scrutinized my son intently. His clean-shaven face showed his square jaw, his forehead glistened with sweat. He looked no older than 23 or 24. Carry only one bag small. As I approached them both, I saw a transformation that surprised me. Those implacable black eyes suddenly became soft and tender as they turned towards me. Ronaldo, perceptive as he is, also noticed the fleeting gleam in the young man's eyes. Without wasting time, he took care to introduce us. Andre got up, he wasn't very tall, extended his hand to me, and the very nice that reached my ears came from a deep voice that showed a lot of firmness. Proving to be polite, he immediately apologized for talking to Ronaldo without my permission, but he declared himself innocent as it was my son who had started the conversation by asking him if he knew how to play chess. I see that you have a good taste in literature. He continued without giving me time to say anything, and pointing to the book by Carlos Drummond that I had left on the bench. He reciprocated the kindness by referring to the book he was carrying. Oh, yes. The Red and the Black, by Stendhal. He said, lowering his eyes to the book, thus giving a respite to my body that he shamelessly devoured. My favorite book. Already read? I think I replied that I also liked the book, but I'm not sure. I feel perplexed. I couldn't believe that a 40-year-old girl like me could still arouse a boy's libido. Perhaps he didn't notice my annoyance, for he began to tell me that he had already written 2 books but, considering them very bad, never sent them to a publisher. And he continued chatting for another 6 minutes, talking about his life and especially about literature. Until Ronaldo, fed up with that nonsense, intervened. He apologized and reminded Andre that they had agreed to play chess. I made things easy by saying I needed to finish Drummond's book. My young friend proved to be an excellent player. Luckily I also have enough knowledge to keep up appearances. I can imagine how surprised he would be if he knew that my concentration was mostly focused on his mother's presence. What woman? She wore a tight-fitting dark green dress that exposed the contours of her body. The protruding jaws gave him a singular appearance. The few wrinkles were only visible when observed very closely. Thin lips formed a beautiful frame for white teeth. The moment the boy announced check, she, with her impressive eyes with light brown irises, caught me looking at the outline of her breasts. I confess I was embarrassed, and to make me even worse off she said, with a sly smile at the corner of her lips, that I should better protect my king. Then he lifted the book to his nose and, as he lowered it, revealed his roguish smile. She looked like she was having a lot of fun being admired. 19 moves and I'm already in check. Looks like today is not my day, I said, in a vain attempt to show myself indifferent to the embarrassment I felt. We played this and 2 other pars, of course I lost them all. Before arriving in Sao Paulo, there was still time to talk a little more with that lovely woman. So I found out that she was separated from her husband and that she wasn't having an affair with anyone else. What a waste. On the sidewalk, in front of the station, where I helped them with their bags, I promised to send him an autographed copy of my book. So that Ronaldo wouldn't say later that I disdained him, I gave him my phone number so we could arrange a chess rematch. They would return home by taxi. As I lived nearby, would walk. We say goodbye. His handshake was gentle and I seemed to sense a slight tremor. As I walked away, I turned for one last wave. It was then that I saw both of their faces change from a smile to apprehension. They shouted something which, owing to the distance, it was impossible for me to hear. Everything happened in seconds, feeling searing pain and my body being thrown away. I didn't feel or see anything else. I heard voices, but I didn't understand. Shortly afterwards, I lost consciousness. End of this audiobook.